Did you know that I like Final Fantasy XIV? I get that it's an obvious statement, but some people might consider what I'm going to be talking about a total no-no. One of the things I like about Final Fantasy XIV is grinding. I love just sitting down, turning off my brain, turning on Spotify or Netflix, and running something over and over again for incremental progress towards an objective, be it mounts, titles, or my personal favorite, relics. And yet, somehow, with a whole extra month of dev time, side content in Endwalker's patch content has been dire. And for some reason, some people are desperate to defend objectively bad content meant to keep you playing, and it blows my goddamn mind. Relics, or their official name, the upgradable weapon series, are weapons that over the course of an expansion get stronger, usually with some over-the-top glow, an alternative to high-end raiding, ultimately becoming the best weapons you can get due to customizable stats, and I adore them. The stupid over-the-top glows that would burn your retinas in real life, the low drop rates that make me play for hours on end just for a chance at getting what I need. I love it! It justifies my sub and breathes new life into content most people won't run anymore by the end of the expansions. Each expansion has their own weapon to upgrade. The Zodiac Brave weapons in A Realm Reborn, the Anima weapons in Heavensward, Eurekan weapons in Stormblood, the Resistance weapons in Shadowbringers, and the latest, the Manorville weapons in Endwalker. Also crafter relics, but I'm not talking about those, but I like those too, they're fun. Now usually these relics kind of fluctuate in difficulty, like one step might have a 2% drop rate per area and you need 10 per specific region. The next might be a simple run a specific piece of content X amount of times to finish off the weapon, and I believe a good balance is needed for a proper questline to be fun. I vividly remember the joy I felt when the final step of Heavensward was a victory lap after having to run trials over and over to fill an invisible bar with points. An important thing to note is that they were also designed to help facilitate players at endgame to help newer players by doing content they wouldn't be doing anymore. For instance, by adding items you get for doing any fates in an area, meaning that the new players who were doing this content for the first time will be held by players at endgame. This also works for any instant content like dungeons and boss fights. And yet, post-COVID, post-Final Fantasy XVI development, and with a whole extra month per update, Endwalker has absolutely been lacking in side content that's designed to have you log in. As of patch 6.35, there's only a single piece of battle content that's designed to have you keep playing for longer than 5 minutes, the newest Deep Dungeon, which is just a reskin of the previous one with nothing really new added. I was kinda hoping that that's what steal from WoW's Torghast and Shadowlands. Like, I'm by no means a big World of Warcraft player, but some of the stupid buffs like having to walk near edges for a speed boost was fun enough that I think they should have adapted that into 14. Yet, sadly what we got, after a lack of Deep Dungeon in Shadowbringers, was just another one with nerf-specific effects that went from floor and boss killers to, well, basically an extra party member on a specific floor. But it has replay value in its leaderboards, mount from doing it fully 4 times, and titles for both solo and multiplayer runs. In fact, Endwalker's big content draw for the expansion is a casual idle simulator, Island Sanctuary, which is fun, don't get me wrong, but there is absolutely zero incentive to log in for more than 5 minutes on a weekly basis. And that's fair! From the get-go, Island Sanctuary was set to be a hyper-casual piece of content. You zone in, check on your animals, check on your crops, check the market, and log out. It's basically 14's idle simulator, but it is the big content this expansion they're focusing on. So what about relics this patch? Well, they suck. And ask anybody who actually enjoys relic grinding, they'll tell you the same thing. The same step as the previous patch's starting step, 1500 tombstones per weapon, which is just doing your daily content. Which isn't good side content, it's playing the fucking game. And if it isn't high-end raiders getting caught using third-party tools and every straight-edge kid coming out of the woodworks to blame all mods, or content creators buying view bots, or trying to claim their pain is far greater than yours when playing the funny fucking wizard game, or screaming about pink bar stools, it's people defending the lack of content with, well, the game's designed for you to not play. Yoshida said that. And it's like, okay, good for you. I'm glad you can justify not wanting to play the game. But I do want to play the game, And clearly plenty of other people agree. This has quite frankly not been an issue since, well, Heavensward's first patch delay back in 2015. But Heavensward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers all had content designed to keep you logged in and playing during the in-between months. That's what an X.X5 patch has always been about, and the relics are a huge part of that. So for reference, I'm going to run through each X.3 patch and tell you exactly what they added as grind content. Patch 2.3, Defenders of Eorzea. This patch added the 6th upgrade to the Zodiac weapons. Zodiac weapon Novus. After grinding through 2% drop rate items for the 3rd step, killing 100 enemies and running specific dungeons, fates, and left quests 12 times for the 4th step, and adding materia via specific items gotten from treasure maps, you're greeted with light farming. A fairly simple process where each piece of content released up to that point gives you light, as long as you run the content with the weapon equipped, or put it on when you reach the final boss. Basically an invisible bar that fills up incrementally, requiring 2000 light per weapon. Every 2 hours, there's a bonus window on a specific piece of content. This step specifically helps newer players get through old content due to veterans running it over and over again for light. Even with pre-mates, there will always be people solo queuing for the content with a bonus on it. Patch 3.35, Gears of Change. This patch added the ability to add substats to your anima weapon, requiring 2 specific items, Umbrite and Ether Sand. Umbrite could be bought via tombstones, while Ether Sand was a really specific step for crafters and gatherers. If you have a crafter or gatherer at 60 at the time, you basically had one half of the step done due to the ease of getting Ether Sand. Though there were other ways of getting Ether Sand as a battle class via trade-in items, or my personal favorite back in the day, 8-man left quests. You would grab the quest from Ishgard and started to look for a treasure chest. Once you got the chest, you'd be rewarded with 10 items that could then be traded in for Ether Sand. These did take up 10 of your leave allowances, so if you were unlucky like I was a lot of the time, you'd be burning through those fast. But the point was you could restart them without clearing them, so you could just keep grinding those chests. While not specifically breathing new life into old content, it was heavily time investing. Patch 4.35. Under the Moonlight. Eureka. Specifically Eureka Pagos, which made you not only grind fates, it also made you light farm again. Specifically in Pagos. Admittedly, another step that didn't have you go back into old content. However, Eureka was and is a time sink, and at the time of release, Pagos was designed to take a long time. Not only with Eureka's own leveling system, but the rate at which you gathered light. This was definitely the most designed like old MMOs and how you were just killing mobs over and over and over and over and over again for light. Patch 5.35, Reflections in Crystal. So, after COVID swept the world and forced the devs to delay the base patch by a few weeks due to adjusting to working from home, not only did this patch deliver a whole new combat zone for relics, the Bajan Southern Front, it also introduced Castrum Lacus La Torre, an open zone dungeon specifically for Baja that is, in my opinion, one of the best dungeons in the game due to its different nature from the hallways that are normal dungeons. The previous patch was the start of the relic and a bit of a simple step. A free first weapon and a quick tome grind for the next weapons lead into this. Requiring specific fate drops, it had a bit of a low drop rate in Baja itself, but doing those in Baja helped with Baja's specific leveling system. But if you didn't want to run Baja, you could run Heavensward Fates. Not only did they introduce a whole new zone to play around in with its own story and progression separate from the main story, they let people who didn't want to do that go farm in Heavensward areas, which basically revitalized the areas. This is objectively one of the best relic steps due to its dual nature. Plus, Baja itself required you to do Stormblood's 24-man dungeons to access in the first place, forcing people to do that as well. Patch 6.35, Gods Revel, Lands Tremble. After grinding 1500 tomes for the first step in the previous patch, you do it again. Nothing's changed. You either grind hunts or run your roulettes for the day. At your slowest, you can get a weapon every 2 days. This sucks, and I don't get why people defend it with, well, it's basically the same as grinding fates, when no, it isn't. For reference, this step would have easily been fixed by being a fate step. Shadowbringers introduced fate-specific items called bicolored gems, which you get for doing fates, and introduced the shared fate system, which rewards you with new items for crafting, gathering, and even housing or glamours. When you get everything you need and aren't interested in crafting or gathering, you basically don't bother with fates anymore. So simply making the step, get 10 drops from each Endwalker zone's fates, or buy one for 500 bi-color gems, not only would have incentivized people like me who have already finished all the shared fates to go farm fates again, it would have added extra incentive to people who haven't done them yet and can't due to the time it takes to clear fates solo, or the lovable annoyance that is people showing up for hunts in the zone and capping the fate's difficulty, no longer allowing you to solo them. Endwalker's story in both main and side content has been pretty damn good, and I can't wait to see where 614 takes us. But this extra month of dev time is clearly not going into content, and it shows. We've gone from getting a whole ass extra 24-man in the game's first 48-man Savage in one patch during the COVID pandemic, to just farming tombstones with a whole extra month of dev time behind it. There isn't any excuse for this. Not to mention, the hyped up new Gold Saucer minigame has been missing since they talked about it like it was going to be 6.0's next big thing. Blue Mage hasn't even had an update since Shadowbringers, which would have helped immensely with longevity between patches, because fuck, Blue Mage and doing Blue Mage specific stuff is fun, and it helps newer players do Blue Mage stuff because nobody is farming Blue Mage spells right now. Not to mention, relics are also brought people together. The suffering and instant regret everybody feels when tackling this stuff is what makes it fun. Complaining about drop rates, staying together in groups to do stuff, helping out. While I really don't mind that 14 is slowly but surely becoming a single-player Final Fantasy with multiplayer elements, it is nice to actually do stuff with others in a massively multiplayer online game. Why would I do Island Sanctuary after I've gotten the highest rank currently in all the items? Rare animals? Those require specific weather in the zone itself, and that doesn't require me to do anything but stand AFK waiting for it. Variant and Criterion dungeons? After clearing the story and getting the mount, there is zero reason for me to continue because there's nothing worthwhile in the rewards anymore. Like I said, Deep Dungeon is the only worthwhile piece of battle content to do now that actually justifies a sub. I've seen people defend this by blaming 16's development for taking up the team's resources, and, well, no, you fucking dumbass. 16 has been in development since either right before or after Stormblood. This was never an issue even during COVID when fucking Baja got dropped. You cannot excuse this by outside factors like 16 or COVID anymore. Hell, I'd argue Stormblood took the hit from 16's development due to, well, Stormblood's patch issues. I like the theory that the reason why side content is lacking is because the extra month of dev time and a lot of resources are being poured in prepping the engine for the big graphical overhaul in the next expansion, plus the patch-by-patch implementation of the duty support system in previous expansions. I desperately hope this theory is true because November is the current estimate for the final content patch of Endwalker and the road to 7.0 properly begins. And while only the devs know the current release estimate, assuming it's summer, that is potentially 7 months of no new content. And while we're no stranger to that lack of content between final patch and expansion release, my fear lies with 7.1 and beyond. If the theory doesn't turn out to be true, then I fear for 14's longevity. Over the past 10 years, there has been zero changes to the base gameplay loop. And while I'm a big fan of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, doing stuff like relics or exploratory zones like Baja helps immensely with keeping people playing. The excuse of play something else isn't for everybody. Not everybody wants to play something else. You'd genuinely be surprised at how many people just play the game to play the game, not to hardcore raid or some other reason. People like me just play the game to enjoy playing the game, and if your reaction to people wanting some form of content that actually justifies logging in beyond doing your roulettes is to unironically go, well, sucks, Yoshi says to play casually, I genuinely hope you enjoy paying $12.99 a month for that house. I hope the rent is worth it. And if anybody tells me to just go grind Zodiacs if you want to grind that badly, fuck you, I did. I'm the relic boy, goddammit. I'm the one who grinds.